What do you do when you have a buildup of water where your sump pump discharge line or your roof runoff system discharges? If there's a ditch that doesn't drain and it's always holding water, or if there's an area in your yard where you discharge your roof runoff system or your sump pump discharge line, and it creates a high concentration of saturation in a small area, there's a fix for this. You can install a leach field. This will help the rest of your yard to absorb that high concentration of water, but over a greater distance. If you want to learn how to build a leach field or soak away, this is the video. We have all the details. The men that installed this soak away leach field system nailed it. This crew on a real feel 18-degree Michigan day brought their best and just absolutely crushed this drainage issue. So I'm going to take you through all the details. Let's show you the details that matter when you're building a leach field soak away. You want slope down to your leach field. You need slope on that solid discharge line. But once you get to the leach field itself, you want to build your soak away level. You don't want any slope. You don't need any fall. You want to build it level because you want the water to lay in the leach field at the same height throughout the entire leach field. That way it can take in water from the beginning of the system to the end. Now we're running a roof runoff system along with the sump pump discharge line, and we're collecting some yard water, all in the same system. We're going to take all that water to this leach field soak away. Some of the things when you're trying to build your leach field soak away that you want to remember, a really big detail among many, but this is one of the bigger details. You want to build your leach field when you're still on higher ground. You don't want to wait till you're all the way back to the lowland. You want to come up and start your leach field when you have some elevation. You're going to have more ground and more land to leach that water. Remember, the way a leach field works, through gravity and capillary action, the water is pulled through all the existing subsoil. You want to build your leach field soak away through an area of your yard that is your driest land, so to speak. You don't want to build it where it's already saturated, it's already lowland. It's too late. Once you're down there, that is just too late. Before you get to the lowland, if you can hang the water up, you can hang it up in a soak away leach field, and you can let the higher ground absorb some of that water. It's going to reduce the saturation that you're going to see in that ditch, at the end of your yard, in that swale. Your lowest elevations that are normally really super saturated, they hold water, problematic, they become a mosquito hatchery. These are the areas that you're going to improve on. Now, in some cases, you do have to pump your water up to your leach field to get it to that better ground, that higher ground, that drier ground. In this case, we had the elevation, we had the fall. It was over a great distance in an extremely long run, but we did have it. So we were able to build this leach field soak away without pumping the water up to it. We were able to gravity drain it down to the leach field. You can see the leach field manifold is connected to this distribution box. We want to know where the system begins, and it keeps the discharge line serviceable. We can actually get inside the discharge line from either end. Now, the pipe that we're going to use on this leach field is like a solid pipe because it has no material removed, but it has cuts in it. It's known as knife cut. This is our extra heavy-duty, high-octane knife cut. No material has been ground out. This is not like other perforated pipes. Blades, during the manufacturing of knife cut pipe, cut those slits in the pipe. We want the water to run down this knife cut pipe the entire length of the leach field. We don't want all the water to be spilling out right at the very beginning of the leach field. That would cause a high concentration of water in a small area. That's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're building to avoid. We want to distribute the water over a large area so that it's not in high concentration anymore. You want to make sure that your leach field manifold is level. You want it level so that you have an even distribution of water to all 4 of the fingers on the manifold. All these chambers are going to get loaded with water. Because it's knife cut pipe, the water is going to be able to run down the knife cut pipe all the way to the other end of the leach field. The pipe is acting as a chamber. It's holding all the water. The cuts in the pipe then allow it to slowly be leached into the subsurface soils. For each branch of this manifold, for each run to hold the same amount of water as the other, it is so important that you have this built level. You have to make sure that your system's built level and your manifold is installed level. For additional capacity in your leach field system, you could run pipe in between each branch on the manifold. This will increase the capacity. This will increase the amount of water your leach field can take in. You want to make sure that the solid discharge line to the leach field has pitch and there is slope, because when this leach field fills up with water, you don't want it to backfeed up towards the house. You definitely want to use big aggregate. Big aggregate has bigger voids. It's going to hold more water. It's also going to move more air. Why that's important, if there's any trees nearby, you want to discourage, the trees from rooting into your leach field. If you create a lot of void, it's really hard during the drought season for those roots to survive, and they usually get air pruned off. Notice how the further we take the leach field out, the shallower it becomes. That's because the leach field is built level and there's a little bit of slope away from the home. This is going to make it extremely easy to build an overflow on the far end of this leach field where we can daylight a pop-up. Where the leach field is the deepest, you want to put some of that native soil back over top of the leach field. It's pointless to take the stone all the way up to the surface where the leach field is at the deepest point. You're going to want to burrito wrap it so that you have a good drainage fabric between your stone and your soil so that you're protecting those voids in the stone. You don't want them to fill full of dirt. You can see the solid discharge line. This is a solid 6-inch discharge line that goes to a distribution box. And then we have the leach field manifold on the other side of that D box. To make this install a little more DIY friendly, replace that 6-inch solid discharge line with 2 4-inch solid discharge lines. That would be much easier for a homeowner to work with, and that's what I'd recommend. We are using 1.5-inch round rock for this leach field, but if you cannot get 1.5-inch round rock in your area, then get a 2-inch or 2.5-inch crushed stone. It'll have really big voids. Just make sure it's screened. You don't want it full of fines and a bunch of dirt. Now you can see on the far end of this leach field, we have a pop-up emitter. That's our overflow. If during the rainy season this leach field reaches full capacity, you want it to be able to daylight so that excess water can then slowly just run out that overflow. Whatever the leach field can't take in, you want it to be able to run out and work its way down to that ditch. And here's an overview. You can see how the men did a really good job of pinning back this fabric so that they can put the dirt over top of this system and not worry about the dirt filling the voids of the drainage stone. This crew really crushed this job. The details matter. They got it right. We took a discharge line for a sump pump discharge. We took the roof runoff to this 20-inch distribution box. We put a grate on top because this area always collects water. So now we're grabbing the surface water in this low-lying area. We then run a solid discharge and we have slope. We take it down grade to a leach field before we get too low in the elevations of the yard. I like the fact that we have a D box on both ends of that solid 6-inch yellow discharge line, that we could access it from the connection point to the manifold, and we could also take that 20-inch round catch basin, we can take the lid off of it. It's acting as a D box. distribution box because it's collecting the sump pump discharge water, the roof runoff water, and some surface water. We cut all the sod off with a sod cutter. So the guys are going to be able to put this yard back together the way they found it. There's no sprinklers in this yard. So we have to make sure that we have enough dirt on the system that we don't end up with the grass drying out during the drought season and just dying. This will create a problem for the homeowner. We don't want them to have to deal with that. So just pack enough dirt back on your system. When you're putting the stone in on your leach field, make sure that you leave the stone shallow enough that you have some room for some dirt. Now, where you come up in daylight, there's not going to be as much dirt, but it's a give and take. You do your very best to address all the details. Instead of this being a 100-foot strip of dry grass in the summer, probably the last 15 feet will be dried out, and that's about it. Leave yourself enough time, make the time, to make sure that you break up all the dirt and you pack it in. If you don't do this, you're going to end up with uneven ground. It's not going to be fair to the homeowner if you're a contractor. When they mow their yard, it's going to be really bumpy. If you notice, the men are taking their time to get this dirt packed really nice and tight. They've been busting it up, they've been packing it in, and they're taking a flat shovel and they're taking down all the high areas. They have been really particular about how they're prepping the soil before they put the turf grass back. Another pointer to a DIYer, make sure you take your leaf blower and you blow any dirt that may have splashed out of a wheelbarrow or a machine, a skid loader bucket, and get that where it belongs before you put your sod down. It's so much easier if you do it in a sequence like you see the men doing here. They did a beautiful job putting this yard back together again. The best time to do an installation like this is during the drought season. If it was during the rainy season, it would be a struggle and it would take 10 times as long. Just keep in mind, during the drought season, you will have to water this grass for several weeks before it roots in again. This turf grass is lying dormant. It is now winter here in Michigan. Mother Nature will take care of it from here. Come spring, it'll get rained on and it'll just root right in. You can see the pop-up emitter at the end of the leach field where it daylights. That's the overflow. If you found any of this information helpful, give us a thumbs up. It supports the channel. If you have any more questions about leach fields, leave them in the comments section. I'm your host, Robert Sherwood, and until that next video,